Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged's Emerging Vendor Series. My name is Rick Smith, and I am your host. This is our new series highlighting ConnectWise PitchIT contestants. Each week, we highlight an emerging vendor who is changing the game and making a big impact on the space. Now, before we meet and talk to this week's contestant, I'd like to make a quick announcement, and that is for our upcoming event here at MSP Unplugged, and that is TechCon Unplugged, which is happening September 7th to the 10th at the Delta Hotel in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Now, TechCon Unplugged is our annual gathering of IT business owners, techs, and vendors in the space. You get to meet and learn from like-minded business owners and panels and breakout sessions, gain key takeaways from partners and vendors in the community. And my absolute favorite part of this is you get to experience those one-on-one or spontaneous group conversations where great friendships are built, relationships are cultivated, and ideas are exchanged. Now, tickets are on sale at techconunplugged.com. We are coming into, at the time of this recording, we are just a little over 2 months away, and we have a few tickets left. So if you are interested, we do encourage you to go to TechCon Unplugged and pick up your tickets. We look forward to seeing you there. All right. Now, let me bring in my co-host, someone who you all know. I'm going to read this directly from the thing. He is the ConnectWise Evangelist, Mr. Sean Lardo.
You totally took away the economy part of that message. I love it.
Yes. For a quick note, for those of you who listen, for some reason, I cannot say economy and evangelist in the same sentence. So I have screwed this up maybe 6 weeks in a row. So I'm just taking a different approach.
That's by avoiding.
Exactly.
I understand. I'm a father. I avoid lots of things. So I get it. I absolutely get it. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Great weekend. Get to relax a little bit. I know this is going to be on air, but the kids are gone for the weekend. So for the week, so I have a free week this week. So I'm ecstatic. Looking forward to it.
It's not like your kids watch your stuff, so you don't worry.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
my kids could care less what I do.
Actually, my middle daughter does edit these, so she will see this.
You obviously
love you, Kennedy.
You'll miss her. All the other kids, blessing to be gone, but her
exactly
will be missed dearly.
Exactly. But how are you, man?
Doing great, man. Getting ready. Actually, as soon as I wrap up this, I have to go pack. I head to Columbus for ASCII tomorrow, which I know this will come out in the next week or two, whenever this episode comes out. But by that point, I already have finished ASCII. Probably saw all the people that I love dearly. A couple people, Anyway, but I'm actually taking my daughter. I'm taking my youngest daughter with me, her and her friend, because I had to rent. I obviously had to get a second hotel room, and that way they can go swimming and stuff like that. And God knows whatever. Here's money. See you later.
So, awesome.
Well, it's be awesome for them. They're like, kids are different these days, man. You can just put them in a bedroom with a phone, and you can see them 2 days later.
That's their whole day.
Like, seriously. I'm like, do you need like diapers? It depends. We'll put them on you. We should sit there. That way you never have to leave. So I don't know. Anyway, thank God for technology.
Yeah. I sometimes I say that, and then other times we're like, you guys got to figure out something else. But
dude, right? Oh my God. Look how it is. Let's not go too off track rather. But when we were kids, there was activities every day for us that were free. Our friends were outside. Now you got to pay for them to be in activities.
Exactly.
It's insane. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. So, it's the economy, baby. All right, now let's leave our kids behind and let's talk a little bit about PitchIT. Tell us a little bit about PitchIT and what's going on with that.
So PitchIT competition, as you know, it is a competition. It's a Shark Tank competition sponsored by ConnectWise, looking for the best innovators, right? Startups, have to be startups first off, that are vendors that are here to complement ConnectWise ecosystem, and most importantly, support the mission of the MSPs, which is supporting their end users, right? But as I mentioned, it is a competition. So right now we have 26 vendors that are going through our accelerated incubator program that'll end at the end of August when they pitch live on the channel program, which, by the way, last week we did a lottery, Matt Hall and myself, and we selected each day. We have 3 days of pitches because there's so many vendors in this. So 3 days, over the course of 3 days, they've all been selected for which state they belong to. At the end of those 3 days, the following week, the judges will be looking at this. The MSPs are voting as well. So there's 2 parts of this, how it's scaled. One is the MSP votes. So I want everybody to pay attention to that. And the other part is the judges as well. So we're going to weight both. At the end of it, though, we're going to pick 3 finalists. These 3 finalists are going to go off to IT Nation Connect in November. On day 1, they pitch live to be they're all pitching for first place. First place is 70 grand. Second place is 30 grand. Third place, well, jelly of the month, steak knives. You take your pick. I don't care. I think it's great every time I say it too. I'm like, son, it's amazing. But that is the goal behind all of this. So it's important. We'd like people to pay attention because we want them to follow these vendors and see and help us, because we're selecting based off criteria we know that is universally needed, and those things that they can integrate with ConnectWise, stuff like that. But if there's things that you're seeing that they could also add on to, or that needs to be changed, we're looking for feedback.
Awesome.
And I'm done.
Awesome. All right, so let's bring in this week's guest, Mr. Brian Doyle. He is the co-founder of vCIOToolbox. How are you, Brian?
Doing great, Rick. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for
Great
being
to
here.
see you as always, Sean.
You know what, Brian? Pleasure is all mine. Your hair looks really nice today too.
We try,
I mean, you have hair. I don't, it's like,
mine's going white though. It's got its own challenges.
I'm sure.
Hey, Brian, for those who don't know you, just give us a little history on you and then how you got started vCIOToolbox.
Yeah, so I mean, my backstory is like a lot of the vendors that you know about in this space. I started as an MSP. We had about a 16-year run where I was an MSP that also ran a number of regional data centers. We had a successful exit back in 2010. I then went on and did a little hired gun role that allowed me to start seeing the enterprise side of managed services, totally different way of addressing both customer requirements and really how to communicate with the customer. And when I came out of that, had a little bit of a non-compete. And that's where we really set the charge and built vCIOToolbox, which kind of took the process. We stayed engaged with our customers and we put it into a more structured application. So, it becomes very repeatable and consistent, and the end user knows what to expect.
Okay.
I think that's extremely important, by the way. Can I just say that now? Because one of the biggest fights we have, and Rick knows this, he's an MSP, is it's entirely difficult to scale if you're not organized and ahead of the game. Less reactive, more proactive. I find that most of the businesses grow just due to being reactive.
Yeah.
And again, that's a testament to great service. That means you did really good with them. You were, but when you're just waiting for them to say, oh my goodness, something bad just happened. But they have to know you too, which is another challenging piece. If they don't know you, it doesn't matter. They won't reach out to you. So I totally appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it was really born out of client retention requirements too, right? We looked at customers that we lost, and there was a common fact. We didn't know enough about them. We never got elevated past the seat of being an operational partner. And as a result, they didn't really see value. It was commoditized. And we all worry about that commoditized piece here in this industry, right? When we looked at the customers that, were with us 7-10 years, it became very obvious. We knew their business. We understood what they were doing, and we were able to communicate how technology was supporting them. So, it offered an opportunity when we came out to jump to the other side and be a vendor and kind of show that a little bit more concretely and help MSPs kind of tell that story.
Yep, that's fair. I totally appreciate that. I'm sorry, Rick, I interrupted you before.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was actually going to comment on the fact that Brian's, and I don't want to say, but his breakdown of who he is and what his company does was very precise and to the point, and I really appreciate that. And I'm working on that so much to get.
That's what these guys are doing with us at PitchIT, right?
Right. So PitchIT's working a little bit, huh?
Well, think about this. I've been with many startups, right? And I know the entrepreneur, owner, founder well, usually, right? And it's almost like it's their baby, and there's all these nuts and bolts they want to talk about, just like your children, right? You want to talk about everything. When they took their first step at one, they did, but I really don't care. I care that they can play football, right? That's what I'm worried about, right? So it's kind of like you have to think about it in a perspective, and it's a very challenging piece for no matter how articulate you are or how good at sales or how anything you are, it's still your baby. So we're always a little bit not ready. We're not ready for that. How to remove the noise, because it's not really noise to you, but it's noise to you, Rick. Right? If Brian went through the whole history of everything, like when I was in, it makes me think of like the Goonies, when Chunk was tell us everything, and he's like, everything, and he's like, I want it, right? And it's hours later, you can't be Chunk,
right?
And that's what's important. So yeah, actually, Brian just did a live stream just a couple weeks ago, and And I critiqued a few things about it, and he already addressed it that quick.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's always great because it's always great when somebody else kind of gives you a perspective. I think one of the bigger challenges for a lot of us in PitchIT too is, much like you two, we work now from home offices. We spend a lot of time saying the same words to our customers as we're demoing our products. And you can get a little lost on, is this really effective or do I just think it's effective, right? So, this is great to get somebody to come out there and go, you know what, not bad, but you can do better. That kind of thing.
And that's all of us, right? And that's not even like I totally agree. Like I walk into the room as the dumbest person in the room. I have to be, because if I don't put myself out there ignorantly, I won't get the constructive criticism that I need.
Right.
Because none of us are saying it perfectly, right? I mean, there's not one of us that could do it all by ourselves.
Exactly.
I say every day that you're in IT, you get stupider because you realize how wider and more vast the whole field is. And, and you need to bring those other resources in to help you in the gaps.
I think it's when you get older, you get dumber.
The trap we fall into.
Oh, there's that too, right? And
the older you get, the dumber you are. Yeah, Rick, that is the trap, by the way. Getting older is the trap. That is
well, I actually meant feeling like when you're particularly in IT, you're in your lane and you feel like that's the only lane, and then you fall into that trap and that's all you pay attention to. And then, like Brian said, you realize there's so much more that you've missed and not paid attention to. So
absolutely, it's the same thing for sales. It's everything. We're creatures of habit, first off. So you get comfortable and complacent, and then all of a sudden you get introduced to this whole world. Like and I'll shut up in a second here so Brian can talk actually. But sales reps, when you hire them, they're right here, right their level, right? Day one, they got hired. They start training, get through their onboarding, whatever, and then they start selling, right? And you start seeing this increase, right? They're going up and up and up and up, and then all of a sudden they hit this level where they're here, they're at top of the mountain. Then you start seeing them dip, right? And they dip. Good. Now the reason why this happens is they become too smart for their own good, and they're also still so dumb. Because right, they start learning all these things. They list it. We call mirroring the prospect, right? And we'll use MSP's case in point. They love throwing around you guys love throwing around your technical terms and your acronyms about things that just aren't even relevant to me. And a young sales rep is like, oh, I better learn what that means. And then they become an expert of it, they think. And then they start to dabble in that conversation with their prospects. And then they get blown out of the water because they're like, then it gets to the next level of conversation when it just be like, I'm a sales guy. I'm here to talk about A, B, and C, and that's it. Like, keep it in my wheelhouse. And this is the same thing applies for business owners too, by the way. And
Sean, you really kind of,
and then they drop.
I was going to say, you really hit on what vCIOToolbox is trying to do too, because one of the biggest challenges I see in QBRs is exactly what you're talking about there. You're showing up talking about you and what you think's important, and you're not putting yourself on the other side of the fence. What's important to my customer? We're sitting across from common business people most of the time. They might have some tech savvy, but they're not IT pros. What do they care about? And how do we communicate in a way that makes them know that their technology investments are actually doing something for them?
Right. Totally agree. I think that's important. Good, Rick.
That was going to lead to my next question there. How do we, because we all fall into that quote unquote trap, right? Of talking to a customer about what we think is important. So how do we, and I guess, how does vCIOToolbox help us see beyond that?
Yeah, so, I'll start this kind of with a little backstory. And what that really was is when I first started doing QBRs, like many MSPs, I came at it from a performance perspective, right? We wanted to show the value we were driving, especially for those customers that we were now automating and things weren't breaking as much and we weren't on site as much to continue to get that billing, right? So the problem we used to do is we'd go out with these performance reports and they'd love them first meeting. Hey, this is great. Never seen this before. Wonderful. Second meeting, good. We're still on track. Third meeting, I get what's in it for me. And that's when you'd have a tough time bringing them to the table. So the problem we're really trying to solve for is how do you communicate to traditional business people, share the value you're bringing, more importantly, elevate your view out of the operational column into that trusted advisor column that we all want to be a part of, and share information that can help customers make more informed decisions. And the win is if you do that, you usually sell things faster.
I totally appreciate that too, because I think so the other issue you mentioned about retention was a big part, right? And then this happening now, I always find that there's a lot of conversations around not being able to maintain what your real value is to the client. I met you today, you became a client 3 years later. How are you still, unless you've had some major challenges that we've had to resolve, because that immediately establishes value. But how do you maintain the value over the course of time as a managed service?
Yeah, we call it the curse of the great MSP. The more we automate, the more we do remotely, the less we're on site and less things break. And if we're not positioned at the right spot with our customer, they're going to question the bill, right? So how do we show that value? And the way we try doing it within vCIOToolbox, and this doesn't matter if you're on the vCIO side of our product or the vCISO side of our product, which we should get into as well. But in either way, we build a strategic plan with our customers. We're trying to understand the initiatives they're going after and the obstacles in the way of success. And we want to know about that, even if it's not tech driven, because you'd be amazed how many problems a customer has that has a technology relationship helping solve for it, and the customer just doesn't see it. Think of tools like Microsoft 365. They're so vast and expansive. They don't think about the fact that they've got remote workforce that might be entering into SharePoint or using Teams, and how those expenses are being validated because we're solving business problems. So, very simply, when we build these goals with the customer, as we build our recommendations that go into their roadmap, we're trying to align them back to the goals they help support. So we can kind of create a check and balance system for the client, help them have a little bit more information to make their decisions. And then ultimately we're able to show motion over time. Hey, here's where we are in the overall business strategy. We are, 35% of the way through our plan today. We've delivered on these projects, and these projects are still outstanding, and this is the status of those. So now we're talking to them the same way their CFOs talking to them, the same way their line of business managers are talking to them, and really helping them understand the relationship between technology and how it impacts their business.
Nice.
Yeah, because I see, again,
Rick, you're the MSP, Rick. Give him hell, challenge him a little bit.
No, my thing about it is, again, I go back to the 2 points that was talked about. We talked about, retention, which is important.
Yep.
I feel like it, I get what Brian is saying, because we lull ourselves into sometimes this comfort zone with clients, right? The longer we have them, the less we think we need to do, or the less we need to show up. Because, as you say, we automate everything now, right? We remote access. They present a ticket, we remote in. So then we don't do a couple of things anymore, right? We take it for granted. We don't visit as much, or we don't say, hey, here's an update on where you are, or let's talk about some priorities, what you need or what you want. And before we know it, someone else walks in there, uses these same buzzwords to a client, and the next thing you know, we're being offboarded. And that's, yeah. And then you're fighting, and then you're sitting there with this question mark, like, why? I'm doing everything right. You guys don't have any issues. But again, we have to address what, I guess the best way to say, we have to address what we don't address.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So, but aren't you preparing them, Brian, with your offer? Aren't you preparing them to be part of the actual executive team? Because that's essentially what you're supposed to be, the trusted technology partner when you come in, right? You're supposed to be, right, as you say, the vCIO, which is you're part of the C-level suite, right? Which means you're supposed to be telling them how to do future investments and projections on what they need to stay with business continuity wise.
And that's really it. I mean, you've got to illustrate that you're taking that seat. And a lot of MSPs are a little tentative to push like that, right? To say, hey, I want to be part of your executive team. This is a void you have. Yeah, maybe I'm not part of the executive decision process at the end, right? But I should be giving you the information to make that informed decision. And that's really what we're trying to do. Roadmap's a perfect example. We talk to MSPs all day that say, I need to build a roadmap, because they've been told through a lot of the folks out in the marketplace, if you build a roadmap, you're going to close deals quicker. Then when I talk to them, I say, are you really closing those deals quicker? And the short answer is no, they'll change the roadmap up and all that. And it's because we haven't portrayed what they need to do from a business objective, or the customer's still struggling. If I spend this 10 grand, is it really going to help me push the needle forward, right? And that's what a true executive in the CIO role would do for you. Hey, by doing this project, it's going to help us with these needs, and this is how it's going to impact you and why it's a worthy investment. So every step of our process is really trying to reinforce that. When you get to the roadmap, we're showing what goals are going to be impacted. So now that person who's non-technical can make a more informed decision, or at least feel stronger about the decision. And then what we're really doing is helping you with the time to money equation, right? We're helping you bring in that money with less sales friction and less adjustment of timeline. Roadmap gives you good visibility when the big bang events are going to happen, but at the end of the day, they still got to execute once you get there, right? So How do we do that? By continually guiding them through this process and really playing that role of CIO that you're talking about, Sean.
Yep. So, okay. So I'll be devil's advocate for you since Rick is so nice. I'm an MSP. I don't have time. This is just another sales piece that I don't care about. Again, and I'm working through multiple platforms. I really am busy as hell. So, and it should be my engineer on that call, right? Doing that, right?
Let me tweak that just a little bit, okay? Same question, but I think you have most MSPs who know it's important, but it goes back to what Sean just said. They don't have the time, or they don't see the time. So same question, I just wanted to tweak that.
Right.
Just
so I'm going to say that question is my biggest threat as an organization too, right? Because if you don't stay consistent in this process, ultimately you don't need a vCIOToolbox anymore. But the real key is, how do you get consistent in this process? One, believe in it. Two, make the investment of time up front. Your baseline is your worst. The worst is the first, like any system. You got to build that first review with your client. But if you take the time to do that right, build that strong strategic plan, which, candidly is a little bit tough for some MSPs. They've never had that conversation before with the customer. But if you invest that time, then my process becomes rinse and repeat. Half of it's automated, through the integrations that we have. Half of it's just keeping on top of things. And then you're prepared to go out and do those meetings repeatedly. The key, though, is until you see the win, right? Some people think the win is just in the product, the sales. So you'll get people that'll, ultimately, I can show you ROI inside of 2 meetings. Any of us in the QBR space can do that, because you're going to uncover new opportunity. You're going to drive new opportunity or revenue back to the MSP. But how do you keep it consistent? The way you can keep it consistent is by getting in there and working with that team and then expanding out. And this is really where we've gone with vCIOToolbox. It started strictly as a QBR tool, but we always looked at it as an account management platform for vCIOs and ultimately vCISOs as well. So now we've got MSPs that are creating new revenue streams, either through a fractional vCIO service and really elevating that game and playing that executive role. Sean, maybe it's in a co-managed situation where they got to manage employees and do reviews and things that nobody else knows how to do, because in fairness to those employees, when you have a non-technical person doing your end of the year review, you're probably not going to win, right? So you need that role. And then from a vCISO standpoint, so many customers are now bound by regulatory compliance requirements. They're looking at risk. If nothing else, they're buying cyber liability insurance. And they expect the MSP is going to help them with that anyway. We're training our MSPs to build that into another revenue stream, a vCISO as a service revenue stream, and take that one step further. So, our challenge in the marketplace, I'll be very candid, is still educating people to the business side. Most folks are tech owners. They think in tech terms. They're not thinking about that piece. But our MSPs that are winning and winning big are the ones that are going out there and really becoming that CIO and working with the customer. And then you inevitably have those repeat meetings, because now you're getting invited in. They want you at that board meeting just to listen in, so they know if there's any technical challenge that's going to come out of what they're deciding in there. Or they're bringing you into higher level executive meetings to be a sounding board on some of what they're doing. So, again, it's not easy. It requires a little bit of a mind shift on the MSP. We're here. We have programs to help with that mind shift, beyond the application to help develop that with you. But it requires some commitment. And that's always a challenge in the MSP space, because everybody already had a full-time job before they met me.
Totally appreciate that. So I got two follow-ups on that. One is winning big. Give me some stats on that. What's winning big?
Winning big. So, the biggest ways we win big is, one, customers uncover new opportunity when they do a gap analysis. They find things out that they didn't know. So they win big through new opportunity. Second way they win big, when they build that strategic plan with the customer, they find out about things that they wouldn't find out about until it was 6 months, 10 months down the line, and it became a fire drill. So now they're bringing those projects in earlier. They might not, it might come out when you do that strategy plan that the customer's thinking about acquiring a company this year, or they're thinking about opening up a new geographic location. They tend to forget to come to the MSP until it gets within, a few weeks of that event, or, a few months of that event. So, we're uncovering those opportunities earlier, putting them into a budget earlier, and gaining acceptance earlier. The other thing is just the time to money valuation, and everybody's got a different respect for that, I know. But what we really see is, if you get on a roadmap where you're helping coach them to the right decision, you don't have things push out. So you can get that money today instead of that 30 to 60 days where you got to go back and have 2 more meetings and get it. So the big wins are really more revenue, new revenue with the new streams that I told you about a moment ago, creating new services, and then ultimately time to money. You know, if you do this right, it becomes a very predictable process.
Right. Got it. Okay. My other one was, again, the other follow-up back to, I'm too busy. I'm working in multiple portals. I'm not gonna get to this. So how are you gonna help me with that?
So we've consolidated a number of tools that MSP uses into one platform now. So if you look at vCIOToolbox's core capabilities, we have 2 products: on-point account management, which includes our QBR product, our CAM product, it's key account management, which is almost a CRM light for the account manager. And we've got our CX module, which is a customer experience module where we can get customer feedback really reserved to the decision makers and influencers. So we can we can use that to get rid of, I don't want to pick any brands here, but if you're using something for just NPS, that can consolidate into our platform and you can measure that from there. If you're using a CRM and you're using it lightly, a lot of that comes into our system because our pipeline goes beyond what is usually in ConnectWise. There you've got your active projects. We're seeing the full spectrum for the next few years so we can better business forecast for our own organization. On the other side of the pendulum, we have our Cybrance vCISO module. And then there we have GRC tools to manage to frameworks, to gauge risk and build risk analysis with a customer, and do third-party risk management as well. So if we're building that vCISO as a service, pillar within our organization, we can go out and manage the vendors for our customer, show them where the risk lives in that population, as well as the risk in helping them get ready for cyber liability or any regulations. Really, it's all the soft stuff that sits on top from an executive level, what all our tools do at the operational level. And that's really where we're trying to help customers skinny their stack. Not that I'm ever looking to push away other vendors, but help them reduce their costs by consolidating 2 or 3 different tools into vCIOToolbox, and then create it. It's my job to find new ways to create revenue for you doing that.
Got it. Okay.
Now let me ask you this from an MSP perspective: is there an onboarding? Is there a training? How does that work?
So everybody gets onboarding with us. We have at least 2 onboarding calls with each customer that comes on board with vCIOToolbox at no additional cost. There we want to make sure you understand, how to build out your review. We kind of in meeting 1 to meeting 2, we have you go build out the review to the best of your capabilities so we can help you fill in the dots. And then we show you some of the customizations that you can do within the system to really make it yours. If you've got a team, though, that's looking for a little bit more coaching, training, and accountability support, we have a program called Ramp Camp. It's a 10-week accelerator. We work with you each week and really do a deep dive on how to build out a strategic plan, how to conduct the IT review, how to build out your budgets. And then we shift into accountability. Now go out and see your customers so we can get feedback and optimize process and systems. So we go through 2 waves of customers there as well. During that period, we touch upon key account management tactics, how to stay engaged long-term with your customer, and how to build a vCISO as a service program. And we record all those sessions so the customer can refer back to them. We use teams to manage each other. And, at the end of usually about a quarter, it takes usually to get through the whole program, they've really now hit the ground running. The process is embedded into their world. And, we get usually good feedback during that as well, where we can improve, which is great.
Okay. That's awesome. I think about that, and we get a lot of us get tool sprawl first and foremost. So we have all these tools, and then because we don't either have any training or we don't take the time to do any training, they sit, right? They don't get used. We pay for them, and they don't serve the purpose that they should. So I that's why I always ask the question about onboarding or ongoing training, because I think that's important.
And let's talk a little bit about ongoing training. vCIOToolbox holds open coaching every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and it's not just for vCIOToolbox customers. We teach, obviously, things about the tool, and we'll do deep dives on certain weeks around those kind of things. But we also talk about process and systems, things you can do outside the tool as well. So we'll talk about how to create your office of vCIO, a concept that we've done on how to bring your entire team into the customer success process. Or we'll talk about how to launch a vCISO program, or how to do a deeper dive with your customer on strategy, even if you're doing it on paper. Because these are all concepts that ultimately will hopefully lead you to us. But these are things that MSPs really need to work on too. And there's not a lot of sources that are talking to them about the business side of how to approach the customer relationship. So again, we welcome everybody to Open Coaching. You can find it right on our website. It's Tuesday at 3. And for those that are on the platform, we record those sessions every week and they go up into our university. So
I like that. And so your trainings every week, again, we're talking about a business transformation conversation, right? Yeah. That's ultimately what this is. I remember years ago pushing and fighting about stop buying servers when you don't need them. Stop buying widgets and gadgets right now. I mean, one of the biggest conversations is about the allocation of investment for growth, right? And obviously people always come back to their wheelhouse, what they're comfortable with, which again, back to servers, gadgets, widgets, whatever, right? And then there's that fly by night. Oh, I'm going to pay for this advertising agency. It's going to give me a ton of leads and we're going to sell. So what do you suggest? What's your opinion or recommendation?
Recommendation around marketing this, or recommendation?
Like, hey, I want to grow my business.
Yeah. So I think there's a huge advisory opportunity. To your point, Sean, the break fix time is behind us. Most people did the majority of their cloud transformation forced during the COVID era, right? Yep. So now we're sitting here and the MSPs got to either adapt or they're going to go away, right? And the ways that we used to make money, and this isn't uncommon, I made most of my money in the 2000s selling exchange servers, right? But the way we make money today is totally different, but there's a huge opportunity to be a trusted advisor. And I'm seeing the MSPs that are winning are starting to capitalize on that. They're figuring out how to build vCIOToolbox compliance as a service programs, which keep them in that conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing them getting into this opportunity to start investigating line of business applications. I think when we talked about it in one of the trainings in PitchIT, where you got to look at your top 2 or 3 customers and say, what do they do and how do I get more like them? Because I know them. Right. So learning the line, business applications for a couple of your key verticals, you might not sell it, but understanding how to support it, how it works, how it impacts workflow, and then tying it back to the things you do for your customer is an opportunity. I think the challenge is MSPs are trying to figure out how to monetize that. For guys like me and you, Sean, and Rick, I'm not going to put you there because you got a little less gray than me. But for those of us that go back,
don't kid yourself. Rick is old.
I know. You see this here? I just hide it up here.
God bless, man. But for those of us that go back to the early era pre-MSP integration time, we made a ton of money consulting, right? And then when we switched into MSP, we started using the consulting as a loss leader to get the managed service recurring revenue. Right. Now the pendulum's coming back around. But the lesson we've learned is, I want to do some consulting and some leadership with these customers, but man, I want to make it a recurring process because I don't like those project peak and valleys, right? And now we can see how to build that as a service. And, in my opinion, the customer needs it, but that's my opinion and I'm biased.
Hey, and as an MSP, we need it. We talk about being a trusted advisor, which is important. And the way you know that you're not is when things start showing up and you get a phone call. Hey, can you just put this in? Or, can you go and new phones are in the system or whatever, a new server shows up and hey, can you, then you're not part of the conversation and you want to be part of the conversation.
And Rick, you're spot on. Think about when a customer buys a line of business app. And this used to be a bigger problem when we sold servers because it used to go on that, right? We'd get all excited. Hey, we're going to sell a new server today. But the reality is if we're not part of that conversation, we don't know where the gotchas are in this process. Right. What might not be compatible with other things we're doing? How do we know if this is really going to give you the desired outcome that you want to get, Mr. Customer? Because they don't know. How do we know that we can really manage this and maintain this with our staff long term? These are questions that now can be asked. The cloud has definitely made it simpler, but you still got to ask, look at things from a workflow efficiency and more importantly, security perspective when you pick these applications.
I think that's a great point. I think that you have to start adopting the difference between being a homemaker, like a home builder, and a handyman, right? The handyman is just plugging things in, right? I'm here to fix that one thing. But the home builders, when you look at them, they are the architects of all. They are talking to all vendors. They are talking about all technologies. They're putting together the schematic, which makes sense to scale for long-term growth, right? And so there's no gotchas then. The only gotcha is if you just aren't good at your job, right? I mean, that's just it.
And with that home builder, the GC is the point person, and that's really the equivalent of the vCIO.
That is exactly what I was thinking too. That's exactly it, because they are the ones running quarterback on every aspect of it. Yep. And they have to, because when you don't, once you're not the quarterback, well, than your Zach Wilson at the Jets or any one of the.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and then all of a sudden you're looking at Aaron, coming over. Hello, Mr. Rogers. Thanks for taking my job. I'll just step back and watch.
I'm admiring the Cowboys platform back behind Rick there. I'm on
How
that.
you admire
Big fan.
Yeah, because I'm a kid of the '70s, Sean. You either were a Pittsburgh fan or a Cowboys fan, man. That's the way it was.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean,
and every now and then you sprinkle little Raiders in there.
Yeah, there you go.
Nobody liked the Raiders. I mean, being from Pittsburgh, Steeler fan, one thing I do know is most commentators hate us these days because they all lost to us in some major game, regardless. Chris Collinsworth, done. He hates us. Boomer, done. They all do. Take your pick. So they all hate us. I watch them and I'm like, guys, you're just jealous. Which, like most Cowboys fans, they're just jealous.
Oh boy. Anyway, back to you, Brian. No, as we reach the end of the time, so
it's like I hate you all, Sean.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. I'm just
right, man. I'm in your camp, Rick. I'm a supporter. It's all good.
But Brian, before we do sign off, is there anything that you think we didn't address or you'd like to?
Look, I think we hit the big things. I'm a big evangelist of, not to use Sean's word there, but I'm a big evangelist of get closer to your customer. I hope it's with me, but the reality is if you're not getting closer to your customer, to your point, Rick, if they're coming to you telling you they bought something and you weren't part of that conversation, you are at risk. Understand where your risk points are with the customer. If they're not coming to you for the leadership side, they look at you as a commodity. That's going to be a challenge. And we need to all elevate our game. It's harder to keep a customer these days. Digital natives now occupy the seats of management. They know technology. They're not as scared to move as some of their predecessors were. So if we don't adapt to the people that are buying from us, we're going to have a challenge long-term as a community. And, for MSPs that want to grow, you got to get out there and make it happen. And you make it happen by taking a little bit more of a leadership stake.
Awesome. Well
I
said.
have one question for you, though, that when you analyze these MSPs, and I'm done after this, what's the ratio of when you look at their total revenue or business, what's the ratio of net new business that comes in annually to what's retention?
Yeah, so fair poke on a couple points there, right? One, obviously the retention revenue that's coming in through this is things that they probably had line of sight on. A lot of times we're just addressing the bringing it in sooner, and certainly through the gaps, we're creating new projects. So, the reports I get from the field, and it's purely anecdotal because I don't have a way to measure it specifically, is they're seeing about a 10 to 20% uptick in revenue on their existing client base each year. But everybody's client base is different, so that's an order of magnitude.
Sure. But they're scaling through their existing.
Yeah, and then everybody's still struggling with the client acquisition side of the story, right? If anybody can come up with the magic sales formula, and I know there's guys like Sales Maturity trying to do that here, then there's going to be a win. But the smaller MSP still struggles with that because they haven't built the sales engine. Now, dovetail on that with, kind of revenue size of people that have success with QBRs. Usually starts around $1.5 million to $2 million, just because of what you guys alluded to before. Time, capability of staying consistent on it and moving on it. Yep. I can coach smaller customers. Don't try to do it quarterly. Try to do it biannually or annually. Just do a better cadence with your customer with some value to get out in front of them. But quarterly might be too much for your organization.
But with a good account manager, it doesn't matter because they're just going to maintain a simple conversation.
But sometimes the account manager is the technical owner at that stage, right?
Right. Agreed. That's why you have to identify what your position is. That's why.
Once you get over a couple million, you're finally getting to a point where you've got enough depth that somebody can assume that account manager role in most cases, and then you're going to have much greater success with it. No doubt.
Well, and hey, Rick, question to you: when you look at your total overall business, because you're an MSP, how much is existing to upsell to client acquisition? Do you know offhand? Like, what's the percentages?
If I had to guess, I'd say, shoot, I don't know.
So I would say, like, what I typically,
but I do know. I know we have someone who does know, but
right. Well, what I've seen in my experience is that you're looking at about 70% of the revenue is just retention.
Yep.
Right. And approximately 20 to 25 is the upsell. So the existing clients just buy more services. And then you're looking at a 5 or 10% at best And that's not even for all. That's general, because some people have not had any net new client acquisitions in years. They don't have some, and it depends on what kind of lifestyle you are. Depends on what are you, based off our modes. Are you a balance builder or a value builder? Those are the two. That's where the line's drawn, right? Balance builders are like, hey, I do this as a lifestyle. I don't care if I have new people. I can keep the people I have, the contracts I have are great. And then there's the value builders, which are like, hey, I keep reinvesting because I want to scale. I want to make lives better for my employees, for my customers. My goal is to become the next whatever, you know? But that's typically what I've seen is 5-10% at best net new acquisition, which usually comes from referrals.
No, I'd agree with that. That's very much in line with what we saw as an MSP ourselves. Again, everybody's story is a little bit different. We did a little bit better with acquisition sales. We were probably closer to 10 to 15% coming out of new acquisition, but we were in the value builder quadrant of that anyway. And, you know, in terms of growing your existing customers, the challenge is if you're not innovating with new services, once they're on full stack, there's only so far you can go. Now you're relying on them growing, right? And to get new income. So, you know, what we're trying to provide a little bit is obviously that ability to build new revenue streams.
Sure.
But you got to commit to it, right?
Yep. All right, I'm shutting up, Rick. I promise.
No, that's fine. We're fine. I just wanted to get that out. And I do have one more question for you, Brian. We talked a lot about vCIOToolbox, and we did hint a little bit on your experience with PitchIT. But just give us a little, I guess, to close us out here. Your overall, your overall experience or feeling about being a participant in the PitchIT contest.
Well, you know, one of the greatest things that's happened out of PitchIT, and I wasn't even expecting this to be the thing that was really going to resonate most with me, is each Wednesday we have a, you know, in essence, a class, right? So when you talk about continuing education and trying to better yourself, trust me, the vendor side has the same challenge as the MSP. You're running fast, you're doing your things, you want to get a little bit more educated, but you don't really have time to go sometimes do that, right? This has forced me to sit down once a week, go in with an open mind and listen to a speaker that even if I think I know the topic well, you're going to pull out one or two sound bites or one or two action items you can take to get stronger. And the team that they've assembled, or at least the cast of speakers that they've assembled at ConnectWise, are touching upon so many different areas. It's not just sell, sell, sell. It's how to sell, how to build an ecosystem, how to speak better, how to get out in front of more people. It's all these different silos, and each one of us is in a different spot of our growth curve. In talking with the other PitchIT members, some are very new to this, and they weren't salespeople before. So I'm sure they're getting a lot out of folks like Jen Bleem's conversation we had last week and things like that. For me, it's more the ecosystem build out. You know, oh, wow, you know, there's 2,100 places, according to Jay McBain, we need to be. Well, the cool part is there's 2,100 places to be. I know I can't be at them all, but I didn't know that there's maybe 4 or 5 I can really focus and invest some time into to grow. So depending on where you are in the arc, the thing that I've seen in this PitchIT program is you're going to find a speaker that aligns to something you need to know. It's just a question of when. Now, that doesn't mean miss the other speakers, because you will learn something from everybody. There's no doubt.
I would agree. I think we do have a good cast of the Cameo coaches from both ConnectWise reps, cloud colleagues, and the external. And when we built the program, we didn't know where to go with it for everybody. It's hard to know. You said it best. What stage you're on in your career with this, you know, and considering 67% of the PitchIT startup vendors were or are currently MSPs, you already know they're mostly technical guys or engineers, and even the ones that aren't, like Alert Ops from last year that won. Chella, he's an engineer guy. All his staff is engineers. Like that's what they do. So it was like, but their go to market was ridiculous. They understood it. They understood their value.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm done.
Well, Brian, I'll say 2 things. I'll give my usuals. Sean knows what's coming. But I will say this again. I strongly believe, and this is why I sit in this chair every week and try my best to you know, help the community and learn from the community and grow, is that I believe that there's a direct synergy between what the vendors do and what we do. And if you guys do good, we do well. So I am wishing you luck. I'm rooting for you, you know, and you know, and I hope you win. I want all of you guys to win, because again, like I said, if you learn and do better, you bring a better product to us and you're a better vendor to us. And that helps us become better MSPs and service our customers better. And that's very important. Secondly, for all of you who might recognize Brian's voice, I am going to do a little shameless plug here.
I appreciate it.
Catch him on MSP Business School, which I do listen to every week during my walk. So they have a lot of great content out there. So if you're an MSP, look for some additional knowledge, some additional information. Check these guys out. They're doing a great job over there.
Yeah, that's our for the love of the game space. We're not looking to make any money off of MSP Business School. We've been around a little while. We try to share some things to try to help everybody out, and I appreciate you shouting out and listening, Rick. And we're looking forward to having you on now. So now
I'll be there.
home and home. I've been here. I got to bring you back to the other side.
I'll
we'll
be
bring
there.
Sean back too.
I have a hair appointment that day, so I'm gonna.
Terrific.
That shouldn't take too long.
Really?
I love you, Sean. I love you.
I mean, really? I'm gonna get a star shaved in the back of my head to represent my favorite team, the Cowboys.
There you go.
There you go.
Come to the dark side, baby.
It's not gonna happen ever.
You do that, it'll be the new icon for MSP Unplugged.
That's never gonna happen ever.
All right, people, it's time for us to sign off here. We do invite you to tune in we release episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday now. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged or facebook.com/Facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. I'm sorry.
You're doing well.
It's the Cowboys logo I'm thinking about now. We need you to like, subscribe, hit that notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. You can also take us on the go. We're in your favorite podcast app. We're in Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. For Brian, Sean, and I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.
Thanks, everybody.
Toodles.
Appreciate it.